The whine of the compressor pumping compressed air into the engine's intake manifold is louder than my heartbeat. I'm amazed that my heart can still beat like that. Tears welled up in his eyes and made it difficult to see clearly. I think I should slow down before I disturb the only thing in the world that I can call my own. When the speedometer needle returned to the readable range, I heard the siren again. I thought that if I went over 140 miles per hour, the police would give up. No luck here. Fuck it all. I thought it was parked on the side of the road. Send me to jail. Perhaps prison will help me escape the nightmare of my life. The policeman stopped next to me. It is curious that he did not pull out a gun, but simply walked up to the car. "Oh my God, Grant," she exclaimed. "Do you know how fast you walk? This is Fred Lively. Fred and I grew up together. We were friends most of our lives until he became a police officer. I wonder how it would affect friendships if I were a famous sprinter today. I guess I should say that I have become a criminal because in some states, including mine, driving over 150 miles per hour on a public road is a crime." "What's happened?" I asked him. When I arrived, Fred was already in the hospital. Considering my current health and appearance, it's hard to believe that today is the happiest day of my life. I spent the night in the hospital after my third or first daughter was born, depending on how you count it. Last night I was sent home because I was there all day and night. There were complications during childbirth. Nothing threatening or life-changing, as they say, just some problems. The problem may arise because my wife Bonnie is over 35 years old. It turns out that our baby Brandy has a hernia. It was not serious, but required surgery. Although neonatal surgery may seem scary, it is more common than you think. This is especially true today as more and more children are born to older mothers. The oldest is 30 years old and my wife must be 30 years old. In fact, he is 36 years old and has never been the healthiest person I know. But I love him like there's no tomorrow. Today I got up and put on the shirt I ordered to show my pride. Looking at it now, I see that this is simply a demonstration of my gullibility and stupidity. This shirt is the same bright yellow color as my Mustang. He has a big smiling face and a sticking out tongue. Under the smiley face and on the back of the shirt it says, "My name is Dad." Being a very conservative person, I would never wear something so bright. Even the color of my car seems unusual to me. I was looking for a black Mustang when I bought it, but after driving it, I couldn't return it. Anyway, as I sat in the car crying, I realized the joke was on me, not the shirt. I'm the only one here you can laugh at. "I remember when my youngest son was born a few years ago," Fred said. "I realized that I had been stuck for at least 18 years. I have 18 years left and I have to give it my all and put myself last. For 18 years I put my dreams and desires on hold. I'm a little crazy." He looked at me as if he knew what I was going through. "I was very depressed and had to see a psychiatrist," he continued. "And Grace and I weren't doing well either. I suffered from the male version of postpartum depression. It doesn't even have a name, but many have seen it. I just don't understand how you can suffer so much. You've waited too long for this baby. She and Bonnie are two of the most loving people I have ever met. I think everyone can understand this, right?" I didn't say anything. I just wiped my eyes. When others see me, I feel uncomfortable and tears stream down my face. "Bonnie was really worried about you leaving the hospital like that," she said. "Why don't I go home with you?" "Fred, I just want to go home and collect my thoughts," I said. "If I can, I just want to go home and think about it. I promise to obey the speed limit. If you want, you can even come with me." "That's not necessary, Grant," he said. "See you later. Be careful." He put on those weird mirror glasses that only police officers wear, got back into the police car, and drove back to the hospital. I went home and parked the car. I walked into the house I shared with Bonnie and our two 11-year-old daughters. I was 23 and Bonnie was 25 when we moved here. I've known Bonnie Ann Franklin for 11 years. We are almost complete opposites, but a perfect couple. Even then, I expected her to come into the house and tell me that everything would be fine. But things won't go so well. Everything collapsed. Things will never get better. I wanted to drink beer and sit on the terrace, but that's not my style. I need movement to think. Bonnie believes that sitting back and relaxing is the best way to think. When she is next to me, I can only remain silent. I went up to the room we used to share. I grabbed my running shorts and a t-shirt and put them on. Another t-shirt, yellow, which I threw in the trash. I grabbed my iPod and ran down the path behind the house. My name is Bonnie Martin and I feel empty. Me too, when I forced Grant to take time off so we could have sex. 9 months ago when I was pregnant, we had so-called walking sex at least once a month. This is the basis of our already dynamic sex life. The only problem was that I couldn't get pregnant. I need the worst meaning of this word. It's not just about sex. I thought about it. I need to feel some kind of life growing inside me, a combination of our genes. When I gave birth to Marie, the whole pregnancy was terrible. First of all, I was very disappointed in my parents. They didn't expect me to be the first person to get pregnant without being married. They allowed me to stay with them and help them. But the shame did not disappear from their faces. Don't get me wrong, everyone loves my daughters now, but they are disappointed in me. Now that I'm married to Grant, I want us to have a child. We went to the doctor and learned the terrible news. We were both very healthy, but Grant had very little of the active ingredient. It was not impossible for me to get pregnant, but it would require a lot of luck. We tried for about a year and then adopted Tara. Tara was 10 days old when she came to us. Grant shared with me all the joys and pains of raising another child that he had seen all this time. It was 8 years ago. I remember it very well. I love my 2 daughters. Grant is the air I breathe, and I can't live without him. As a gift to him and our family, I wanted to relive my pregnancy experience. I guess I would like to see the lives of pregnant women on television. As they lay in bed, the man they loved came up to them and rubbed their bellies, feeling their child growing inside them. She wanted us to take childbirth classes together and choose names together. I wanted to walk around the city with my belly exposed so that everyone who saw us would know that I was pregnant with his child. Maybe because I remember how embarrassed and ashamed I was when I was pregnant with Mary. Maybe it's because Tara and I shared the experience the way I wanted, but only after she was born. For me, this is only half of what I want. God, Grant and I could have 100 kids if he wanted. I would get pregnant. Maybe I'm a little crazy. Looking back, I realized that I was not crazy at all, but very selfish. I told my mother that I was tired and wanted to sleep. He started throwing people out of the room. After they left, I walked over to the table next to the bed. The pain was so unbearable that I almost lost consciousness. Mom came back gasping in pain and hit me on the arm. "Bonnie, do you want to go home?" She growled at me. "If your stitches come out, Brandy might come home before you. What do you want to do?" I said I'd call Grant. She didn't say anything, just gave me the phone. I pressed a button and my BlackBerry dialed Grant's iPhone number. Our phones are set to connect automatically. We each have our own ringtone on our phones, so we know when the other person is calling without looking at the screen. Even if Grant blocks the call, my ringtone will let him know it's me. The phone rang, and after the second ring, a voice message was sent to the answering machine. This tells me how upset Grant is. Grant's phone usually doesn't answer voicemails until the 4th ring. This meant Grant manually sent my call to voicemail to reject it. He doesn't want to talk to me. I pretended to talk to him to confuse my mother. I didn't want her to know we had a problem. She looked at me with a smile, and when I hung up, she kissed my forehead and told me to go to bed. As he turned to leave the room, he looked at me. "Why doesn't Grant come back?" she asked. "My mom is also a member of Grant's fan club. I said he wasn't feeling well. The nurse may have told her that since Brandy had complications during labor, she didn't want to risk infecting her." "Well, that's stupid," Mom said. "So?" I asked. "I think he already wants to pay attention to his new daughter, which is good." "Remember last night Brandy had to have surgery," my mom began. "Grant donated blood and asked doctors to make sure his blood would only benefit his daughter. If her proximity makes her sick, wouldn't the same thing happen if his blood was on her?" I was surprised by my mother's words. I'm not sure of the veracity of his words. I don't know if cold bleeding can cause a cold or something else, but at that moment I realized that my whole house of cards could collapse. "Indeed," my mother continued. "This morning, after talking to the doctor again, Grant ran away. I had to drag my mom out of the room before I broke down and cried. "Mom, can you ask Brenda to come over when you leave?" I said. "I really need to talk to him about something." My mother looked confused. I'm sure he knew something was wrong, but he just nodded and left the room. I need to be very careful when I run. In the emotional and mental state I was in, I paid very little attention to where I was going or what surface I was walking on. Trail running is different from trail or road running. The surface changes and becomes different every time you ride on it. You should be more worried about the rain. It's not just about getting wet. Rain can easily ruin the stability of your stride. In any case, I continued at a good pace and tried to forget about the music and the problems with rent. I always set my iPod to shuffle. This way I can force iTunes to fill it with random music, which will then play in random order. It's like I have my own playlist for every race. My music is as random as the ground I walk on. But somehow, especially that day, I realized that there are no coincidences. Perhaps everything we do is already planned. Maybe there is a divine consciousness or a higher being sitting in the clouds and laughing at me. He probably thinks I'm lucky in life and it's time to get laid. Somehow, despite all the randomness, my iPod still manages to play the least random song in this entire universe. I heard Amy Lee, goddess of human gothic melancholy, sing about my special relationship. In fact, I'm sure Amy Lee has never heard of me, but it seems that way. Anson's songs are almost always sad, but this one seemed perfect for my particular form of depression. I want you to be with me for so long, I don't even know why. Now Amy Lee is singing to a cacophony of guitar and drums. The song, Forever Go, Forever You, was too painful for listeners. I knew Bonnie from the first second. I love her and want to spend the rest of my life with her. But then, we weren't done yet. It's hard for me to understand why I fell in love with him in the first place. She was the one who doubted us. Maybe because it was burned once. She just wouldn't give me a chance. I kept trying to get her to date me for 2 weeks straight. 2 minutes into our first date, he tripped. I grabbed her and we knew we would never be apart again. Of course, she claims she just wants to succeed. I told her so many times, and they hardly understood her. I almost left him and went with someone else. As I said before, we are complete opposites. He was popular at school and university. I played sports and hung out with party people. I could always choose between the girls I wanted to date, but I made it a rule to never choose just one girl. I just want to have fun. I'm not ready and do not want to continue a relationship with a woman. If I were tied up, I would have to give up a lot of things. There were a lot of girls who thought they had lured me into a trap. Nobody understands this. They tried everything. Cheerleaders, neighbors, artists, models, geeks. They've all taken part in photo shoots, and they've all failed. I know I'll settle down one day, maybe when I'm 50, but not much sooner. It's like a song from one of those damn Elvis movies my grandma always made me watch. I have to live to do something. Bonnie, on the other hand, is more psychologically damaged than I am. I was afraid or simply didn't want to accept anything, and she didn't even go to college. After finishing her studies, she immediately entered a monastery and became a nun. He trained and served until he was 23 or 24 years old. Before making his final vows, he decided to look at the world outside the monastery. He took 3 months off and rented a small apartment. She met a wonderful man. She immediately went crazy for sex. Your words are not mine. After she got tired of the first man or tired of her, another man came and then another. And one day she woke up and found out that she was pregnant. It was a humiliating experience for her. He looked at his life and just cried. His life is far from what he wants. Then he returned to his parents. After Mary was born, she took a job as a waitress to support herself and Mary, and then stayed away from men for the rest of her life. That's why it's so hard for me to convince her to go on a date with me. At that point in her life, Bonnie was determined to give Mary the best life she could. There is no place for love and romance in the life of a person, especially a man. Our first date wasn't some magical, expensive 1,000 trip. In the morning, I went to the cinema with her, and then we went for ice cream. When she accidentally slipped and I caught her, I thought the job was done. That's how our faces ended up very close and our eyes met. This is incredible to me. I saw my future with her. Then I realized that she is the woman to whom I can devote myself. She often told me this. My beloved sounds cocky, but he said that he saw his son in my eyes. Yes, there are many children. I didn't have them then, but she only had one. The first meeting with Maria was terrible. I knew that Bonnie's future and mine depended on Mary. We took Mary to the park on our first date, but Bonnie always wanted to impress me. This can also be a good time to have fun. Bonnie is not a skinny, helpless model with 5-foot legs. Bonnie is beautiful, but a little chubby. It's not big or bulky. She's just not skinny. She has hips, a big butt, and big breasts. I wouldn't trade all the money in the world for her. I love snuggling against his big, soft thighs while I sleep. Anyway, back to the date. I was more nervous about meeting Mary than I was about meeting Bonnie's parents. After Bonnie introduced us, I smiled, and the girl came up to me and looked at me. She smiled and began to speak quickly. "Good afternoon. My name is Marie. I'm 3 years old," he said. All this is combined into a series of words. He stopped, held up 4 fingers, and said he was 3 years old. "Can you play any game? What about boys?" "I love playing a child, but I'm not very good at it," she said. "Doesn't have it. I remember girls and boys playing in my area, but I never tried it." I shrugged and she jumped. "Okay, don't worry, I will teach. Everything is fine?" She quickly ran out of the room. Bonnie must have heard her footsteps as she ran around the living room disheveled. Her shirt was still unbuttoned and I saw her breasts in her bra for the first time. I was shocked. What irritated me was his angry look. "What did you do with it?" she called him. "Maybe you should go. This does not work. I'm confused and don't know what to do. On the one hand, I did not harm the girl. I'm not a big kid, but I think it's cute. I really want to be close to her." On the other hand, Bonnie's anger made it difficult for her to breathe, and her chest heaved painfully. I opened the door to leave. "I'm really sorry you feel that way," I said. "I thought we had something special." "Me too," he said. Suddenly, Maria appeared with a small suitcase. She looked at me and then at her mother. "Where are you going?" she asked me. "I thought we were playing Jack. I have to teach you how to do this. I should have grabbed the cat. It's impossible to play without Jack." He took my hand and led me through the door, looking at his mother. "Mom, are you forcing him to come home?" "Cheap." "I want him to stay too," Bonnie said. He then noticed that his shirt was unbuttoned and began to button it. From then on, the three of us were inseparable. A few years later, we got married and adopted another daughter. I love Bonnie more every day and I love my daughters. I didn't think my life would get any better until Bonnie told me she was pregnant about 9 months ago. The astronauts aboard the International Space Station likely heard our screams that day. It's not that we love our daughter less. It's that we both love her very much, but feel like we have to give her up. I already knew that Bonnie really wanted the pregnancy to be successful. I'm worried about whether I can live up to your expectations. Many women's romantic fantasies revolve around poetry, a trip to Paris, or an elegant romantic adventure. To me, Bonnie, the most romantic, erotic, and sensual thing two people can do is have a child together. We often hear this saying, when two people love each other, their souls merge when they love. For Bonnie, having a child with the man you love is the ultimate expression of love. His stomach hurt because in the middle of the night, he ran to get pickles and then went to buy ice cream. As the days passed, she grew taller and happier. If it was possible, she also became more and more worried. I also had to reassure her that the few pounds she had gained would only make her more attractive to me. I had to develop a kind of radar to determine exactly what I needed to hear and when I needed to hear it. Like I said, yesterday was probably the happiest moment of my life, other than the day Bonnie first told me she loved me and the day she agreed to marry me. But all the joy I felt yesterday when I wore stupid t-shirts and handed out gum cigarettes to everyone was nothing compared to the despair I felt yesterday when an overworked doctor said those 3 terrible words. Like I said, I arrived at the hospital early, woke up after 2 hours of sleep, took a quick shower, put on jeans and this stupid t-shirt. When I got to the hospital, I asked the doctor if I needed more blood, and he said there was no problem. But if they need blood, it is best if it comes from their biological mother or father. I thought, his biological father? Who am I? When the doctor saw my reaction, he realized that he had made a mistake. He apologized several times and knew he could face legal action. Suddenly, the room became much smaller, and I felt like I was suffocating. All these complex thoughts were running through my head. Why am I not the biological father of my child? Wait, am I supposed to be him? I'm not Mary's biological father. I'm not Tara's biological father. Does that mean I'm Brandy's father? Maria is not mine. Tara is not mine. Now it seems that Brandy no longer belongs to me. As for Bonnie, she clearly doesn't belong to me either. She must have slept with someone else and knew it. After 11 years of marriage, she knows how I feel about her, so I'm sure she knows how this will affect me. He probably also knew that Brandy wasn't mine, so he didn't just cheat on me, he cheated on me on purpose. None of them are mine. Do I have something of my own? I need to go outside and get some fresh air. I quickly passed a group of friends who wanted to wish me luck. Even though it wasn't his fault, I just couldn't bear it at that moment. I needed to get out of this room before the walls around me crushed me. The nurse told me that my wife had just woken up and came to check on me. Meanwhile, some of our friends and Brenda, Bonnie's sister, saw the stupid t-shirt and started calling me daddy. It was like I was locked in a room full of people sarcastically calling me dad and laughing at me. I'm not really anyone's father. I'm just a joke. I looked around and saw smiling faces everywhere calling me daddy. It was like an episode of The Twilight Zone. At that moment, a nurse came forward and said in a very insistent tone, "Dad, your wife wants to see you now. She said she needed a kiss. Hey, you better not go there." I must have temporarily blacked out because everything they said seemed to happen in slow motion. Their voices are distorted and abnormally deep, and despite their innocence, everything they say is full of sarcasm. Dad, your wife wants to see you. More kisses to you, Dad. Father. They were my family and my friends, but suddenly I hated them all. If I could press a button and detonate a bomb right now, the hospital would be a smoking crater in the middle of the city. Go to hell, I screamed at the top of my lungs. Everyone in the room stopped and looked at me. There was dead silence except for the beeping of cars and computers. The next thing I remember was starting the car in the parking lot and hearing the tires squeal as I pulled out. Lost in thought, I ran along the path, running faster and faster over rough terrain, accompanied only by the mournful cries of Amy Lee. Brenda Franklin entered the room and stood next to her sister's bed. At first glance, the two sisters are very different. In fact, the difference is even greater. Since the sisters were raised with the same values, one would expect them to have similar personalities and values, but this is not the case. Bonnie entered a convent at age 20, and Brenda became a model. Bonnie is either sexy or chunky, depending on how generous you are. Brenda is very thin, which is what she needs for her career. Bonnie may be out shopping, but most people don't even remember seeing her. Their heads nearly fell off trying to look at Brenda. Bonnie became obsessed with sex after leaving the convent. During her research, Brenda experimented and viewed sex as a simple function of the human body. She could not escape and did not pursue him. While he was sure to find more lucrative work from time to time, it was rare. Bonnie loved children and wanted as many as possible. When Brenda was 22 years old, she had her fallopian tubes tied. She didn't want to risk her career and livelihood because of an unexpected pregnancy. Her sister's accident meant a lot to her. Bonnie loved her husband more than she could express. Brenda had never felt anything like this before, Bonnie said. Bonnie is convinced that Brenda has just met the right person in the right situation. Sometimes he does everything to spoil his sister. Brenda very kindly rejected her sister's attempts at marriage. She knows the right person will be there when she's ready. Brenda looked at her sister lying in the hospital bed. She shook her head. All this nonsense about brilliant young mothers is pure nonsense. Bonnie looked terrible. Her hair was everywhere. She had no makeup on and looked like she was about to cry. There are several pipes inside. God knows what chemicals were coursing through his veins. Brenda couldn't go through this just to give the world another mouth to feed. But even after the baby was born, her sister gained 20 pounds. She was lucky that Grant loved her because it took her months to lose the weight. Hey sister, do you want to meet me? She says. I need a lot of help, Bonnie said. It's okay, Brenda said. You need to talk to Grant at home, Bonnie began. But he still won't come here? Brenda asked Bren. I did something very stupid and I do it with the best intentions. I did it for Grant, but I didn't think he'd do it. Her eyes filled with tears and she began to cry. He knew that only his sister knew, so he said it. Okay, turn off the water supply. I'm coming, Brenda said. Seeing her sister cry made her feel very bad. Brenda is not a very emotional woman. What should I tell him? Just tell him to call me or come see me, Bonnie begged. Tell him I love him and we'll get through this. I made a mistake. Brenda shook her head and left the room. This was one of the reasons why he never tried to start a relationship. The workload is too heavy. It takes weeks or even months of pain to compensate for a few days or minutes of happiness. I had a great career. My daughters would be happy if they knew I saw a deer. I also saw a lot of squirrels of different colors, a few chipmunks, a raccoon, and a skunk, which I stayed away from. When I wandered home, it was surprising that I no longer felt at home. I was tired, but it was a pleasant tiredness. I realized that I was subconsciously trying to tire myself out so much that I was too tired to sit and think about what Bonnie had done to us. Not just with me. Your actions have changed our entire family. I thought that in the hospital I didn't even believe that Maria was my daughter. This is the most insidious part of all of this. Today, most of us are enlightened enough to allow our ideas to deceive us. We all believe that we do not judge our friends or other people based on the color of their skin, their national origin, or their age. We consider ourselves above everything. We think of them as something from the past, simply relics of a less enlightened time. Then we angrily yell the N-word or call someone some other racial slur and are forced to take a closer look. Meanwhile, all our friends will use our outbursts to stigmatize us and elevate themselves in their eyes because they are now morally superior to us until it happens to them. Maria has been my daughter for 11 years. She has my last name. But in my rage, at least in my mind, I decided or realized that she was not mine. If she is not mine, then whose daughter is she? If you count time, no one on the planet, including Bonnie, spent more time with Mary than I did. I would gladly die for her. Does it matter that her father has never met her? And if her life depends on her father, is it possible that he won't be able to pick her out of a group of girls her age? Where is Tara? Is she mine and not Maria because Bonnie adopted her with me? And a new baby, Brandy. If none of the others are my biological children, why do I hate them so much when just 24 hours ago I was ready to love them? In fact, I loved her from the first hour of her life until I learned that she and I were victims of her mother's betrayal. Where's Bonnie? She told me about her crazy days. Apparently everything we did meant nothing to her. Maybe she's just bored and needs more entertainment. She decided she could do this part-time and I supported her in every way possible. She made a mistake and became pregnant again. No problem. This time she was already taken care of by an idiot. All this nonsense about how lucky we are and how wonderful and beautiful it is, just so I can force myself to raise someone else's child. They could lie in my bed and laugh at me every day while I went to work. The main question is, what should I do? He couldn't marry Bonnie. Even though I love him with all my heart, this problem cannot be solved. The worst thing is what this will do to my daughters. At best, family destruction. When I was recording Dos Equis and I was sitting on the patio, I was going through all the possible scenarios in my head. Most importantly, I want to divorce this cheater and somehow get custody of my daughters. I'll be miserable for a while, but eventually I'll forget about Bonnie. I don't know if girls do this. There comes a time when you need a female influence in your life. Even if I remarry, he will be very angry if the person I marry tries to replace his mother. The second option is worse for me and for girls too. If Bonnie and I divorce and she gets custody, I will only be able to see my daughters on weekends and holidays. You might see her at a school party or birthday party. It would be hell. This is not enough. This path also brings difficulties. They will live with Bonnie's new monster. They will also be his sisters. Therefore, over time, I became more and more uncomfortable touching them or giving them gifts. She had a hard time understanding what he was saying about her having a father. I hate this version. In the end, the best short-term solution for my daughters was to live with them. I simply do not have the ability to accept or love this child. I could sit down with Bonnie and explain to her that I want nothing to do with her or her children. But for the sake of my daughters, we can stay together and act like we are a family. We'll come back to the situation when everyone is older and can understand what's going on. This meant daily contact with Bonnie and her children. This child constantly reminded us that Bonnie destroyed our family through no fault of ours. So this decision was the worst for me. But it is also the greatest reward because I will be able to see my daughters every day, watch them grow, and be there to guide them in life so that they do not grow up with only liars as role models. Of course, changes must be made. We can convince girls that having children is one of the reasons. Dad sleeps in the guest room or basement because mom needs to be close to the baby. It would have been possible, but I had no way to leave the room. Bonnie can sleep in the basement. I helped him move some furniture there, but that was the end of my involvement. She will continue to keep the house clean and cook. I will continue to support us. I would open a savings account for him so that when this is all over, he has some money to start a new life. I will continue this forest for another 10 years. Overall, it didn't take long. Only 120 months or 520 weeks have passed. It's easier to imagine 3,650 days. But if they spend every day with my daughters, I can do this for them. Of course, there won't be any relationship other than Bonnie's parents. No sex, no hugs, no gifts. I don't want to communicate with her. Knock knock, stupidity. Who the hell touched my damn fence? I crossed the yard and opened the door. Bonnie's sister Brenda stood there. Hi, Grant, he smiled. I would say his smile is warm, but if you lived in the Arctic Circle, you might describe the place as warm. Anywhere else, his smile would have been cold. He knew she didn't mean anything by it. It's just Brenda. I grabbed her and hugged her. As usual, she stood there and let me do it. She didn't hug him back. It's like hugging a rag doll or a blow-up doll. Bonnie wants you to call her, he said. She asked me to tell you that she loves you, but she made a mistake. She said you can do it. Then he stood there like I was going to text him or something. It's too inconvenient. We both stood and said nothing. Finally, she broke the silence. She may be talking because she is bored and wants to do something else. Can't you tell me something that I can tell him, she asked. Or don't you call him? No, I said. No, what question does this answer, she asked. I say both. I have nothing to tell you, that's all. This led to another awkward moment where she stood there without saying a word. I wanted to say something stupid like, it's a beautiful day, but I didn't. Then he had to speak again. Listen, Grant, do you need to talk or something, she asked. I could tell by the look on her face that she was just asking to be polite, but she didn't really want to be there or be a part of it. No, don't say that, I said. Well, Brenda said, anyway, the doctor will send her home tomorrow and you can talk to her, right? Okay. Now we can talk, I said. Tell him not to try to break into my damn house. I don't want her or her children to stay here. She can move in with your parents. Brenda jumped back. I think he was surprised by my tone and the passion in my voice. Grant, what happened? You and my sister are in love. Why can't he go home? Ask him to explain, I said. But Grant, she couldn't live with her parents. Mom and Dad are now with Mary and Tara. There wasn't enough room for her, the newborn, and Bonnie. You will understand, I said. My daughters can go home or live with their parents whenever they want. Bonnie might move in with you or your parents when the girls get home. I'll try to tell him, Brenda said. He turned and walked back to his car. At the last second before closing the door, she looked at me and said, I don't know what my sister did, but I know she loves you. I locked the door and started drinking again. Half an hour later, my iPhone rang. I had about 3 beers, so while I wasn't drunk, I wasn't in great shape either. I said, Grant, why can't I go home? Bonnie asked, tears streaming down her face. We need to talk about this. I can't be happy without you. I know you don't understand. You feel hurt and angry, but what do? I shouted into the phone. You're bored, so you'll have sex with a guy for fun. No, she said. I did this for us. I was surprised. She's clearly gone crazy. I do not know what to say. I can't find words to explain everything. This was our dream, he said, and it was incredible. Bonnie started crying over the phone. I just hung up. After a while, he called again. This time my mind was racing, so I didn't answer. A few hours later, the phone rang again. I looked at the caller ID and saw that it was not Bonnie's number. This is your parents' home phone number. I answered because I didn't want to be rude to his parents. I've never been treated poorly, so there's no need for that. Dad, I have a question for you, Mary said. Hello, little angel, I said. As much as I wanted to be upset and angry, I could never take it out on her. That evil voice in the back of my head finished my sentence for me, even though it wasn't mine. If you're home, why am I stuck here with my grandparents? She asked. I don't mind being here when you and Mom are in the hospital, but I have to be with you. He will come for me. Angel, I want to do this, I said. And I wasn't lying, but I had a few beers, so I really shouldn't be driving, especially with kids in the car. Oh, Dad, she smiled. I'm no longer your child. I'm now your teenager. I'm 14 years old. Mary, you will always be my baby, I told her. It doesn't matter what happens or what others say. Before I could respond, I heard another voice in the background. Daddy, I'm your baby, Tara said. Brandy could be my mother's daughter, and I could be your daughter because Mary is already an adult. I couldn't stop laughing. Then Bonnie's father answered the phone. Grant, what happened? Bonnie had been crying all day and knew that was why you weren't at the hospital. She won't tell me what it is, but whatever it is, you guys need to talk. Without conversation, nothing works. Decide. You're absolutely right, sir, I said. Tomorrow I'll go to the hospital to talk to him. Don't you want to take her home? I asked him. It's possible, but unlikely, I said. Early the next morning, I went to the hospital. I received a storm of applause. Several people told me they were sure I would return. I ignored them all. Several nurses told us that they saw many cases of parental anxiety. I walked into Bonnie's room and stood at the door for a few seconds before she noticed me. The nurse disconnected the tubes and electrodes connecting her to the monitor and gave her medications and painkillers. When he saw me, his face brightened and he extended his hands to me. Part of me wanted to go up to her and hug her, but I didn't. The nurse warned him, nearly ripping the needle out of his arm. I waited for a while, and the nurse left the room. You can sit next to me, Bonnie said sadly. Maybe you should close the door. His voice became harsher. Before we begin, I have to ask you something. Why did you lie to your daughter last night? She says. I don't think I should take her home without your permission, I said. Grant, you signed her up for volleyball, even though I didn't want you to. You didn't ask me anything. Remember what you said when I asked you about this? I shook my head, even though I remembered it. You told me that she really wanted to compete and that you didn't need to ask my permission for your own daughter to compete, he said firmly. But now, because I made a really stupid mistake and it wasn't as bad as you think, Suddenly I have to ask his permission so he can go home and be with the father he loves and misses so much. I said, I'm not your father, I'm your father. Oh my God, I'm so lucky that I can't stand up right now, he said. I swear, even if I want you to hug me, I will hit you first. You are her father, her father, her father, and all those stupid names of the men who raised her and loved her. Don't let your stupid ego hurt our little Grant. I made the mistake, not her, she said. Can I bring her and Tara home, I asked. Of course you can, idiot. We never intended to do anything else, he said. Yours? Yeah, that should make things easier for your parents, I said. Of course, yes, he smiled. Your daughters are probably driving her crazy. Now they enjoy peace and solitude. You know they always do this, right? This will also be the case. How can they have privacy and peace with a screaming and crying child, I asked. Remember when kids did this? Grant, what are you talking about, she asked. So Brenda told me that your parents don't have enough room in their house for you, your baby, and the girls. So if I take the girls with me until we decide what to do, it won't be a problem, right? It looked like a balloon that had just deflated. What are you thinking about while waiting for a decision, she asked. You're making us believe there's a chance we won't survive. What do you mean, my daughter? Grant, please don't hurt an innocent child. She is our daughter. You were there for me and her from the first second of my pregnancy. You talked to her every day when she was in my stomach, and now you want to leave her. You rubbed my stomach. You feel tense. You told him everything about us, our family, and what we were going to do, and now you're not his father anymore? This is absurd, Grant. Bonnie tried to get out of bed. She was sad, but it didn't bother me. You still don't understand, darling? It was the best pregnancy ever. It is so romantic. It brings us closer together, and you will be the perfect father. Therefore, everything starts from scratch. That's all I want. This is everything I dreamed of. Suddenly, everything became clear. I'm sure Bonnie is back to her old wild behavior. I think this is an absolutely terrible mistake. My theory is that she was looking for sex because I wasn't good enough for her and she got pregnant, but in reality it was much worse. Deep down I hate her and her children because they remind me of my low self-esteem. What he could give her was clearly not enough. This is even worse. The woman I loved gave herself up to get pregnant, have another man's child, and make me believe that the child was mine. Your child is not an accident caused by carelessness or bad luck. This was a planned betrayal. My heart hurt even more, although I thought it was impossible. My eyes filled with tears and I had to leave her. You understand, right? She asked. You see it now, don't you? I thought about it. No. I need us to have a baby together, Grant. I love you so much that I had to share this with you. As much as I wanted him to be our son, it didn't happen. I dreamed that you and I slept together and were pregnant. I pray about it. I love you. I wish we could do everything I did during pregnancy. Cool. I swear it will be yours just like everyone else. Nobody will know. Yes, I said slowly. I tried to control the anger in my voice and spoke softer. No one will ever know that the woman I foolishly thought loved me as much as I loved her was actually indulging in selfish fantasies. No one will ever know that the girls we live with don't deserve you. They won't know that I'm not enough for you. They may not know that you broke my heart. But damn, they know the joke is over. You know, I'm at least a little proud. You will hear this because we are breaking up. No, we don't agree, he shouted. I noticed a face in the window next to the door. We will never part. I love you, Grant. It was only 6 and it only happened twice. I hate this boy. I don't like it, but it's necessary. I do this for us and our children. Everything is over. We'll be fine. No, Bonnie, we're fine now. You and I and our daughters have a wonderful life. I love you more than words can say, but you're ruining everything, I said. When I came here, I had 3 projects. I have 3 options to get us out of this mess you got us into. I don't know which one to choose, so I want to discuss this with you, and we will decide together which one to choose. But now I'm back to square one. You have a problem. I can't make decisions with you. I can't trust you anymore. What's your plan? He asked quietly. We're getting a divorce and I get custody, I said. You're crazy? She asked. No. I don't want custody of your children, I said. I just need the other 2. What about me? She asked. Who will raise me? I didn't think about it at all, I said. I don't mind. I thought you were going to break up with your strong and influential lover. I don't want to be with him. I do not like him. He doesn't love me and is already married. He was one of those guys who just took advantage of women, but this time I took advantage of him. Bonnie looked at me with pleading eyes. We heard the key turn in the lock. but the door did not open. Are other plans better? I don't like it very much, he asked. I don't like everything that we're not together. We're getting a divorce and you'll get custody, I told him. I pay child support to two people I consider my own, but your partner can support you without paying alimony. I have every right to visit my children. This is even worse, he said. Yes, I will spend more time with the girls, but I won't be happy without you, and Mary will always hate me for taking you away from her. It seemed like everything was my fault. Tara would hate me too, and Brandy would be confused. The look in his eyes said he wanted to hear the final plan. The ultimate plan is for the girls to pretend we're still married, I said. She perked up and even smiled. I can live with this for a while, he said. Can we live with this for 10 years, I asked. Yes, he said. This plan gives me the best chance to save my family, and I know you, Grant. Sooner or later, you will forgive me and love Brandy as much as you love everyone else. I know what you're thinking, Bonnie, I replied dryly, but it's not going to happen. The first thing I will tell you is that this will be a fictitious marriage, and it will be concluded only with girls. We don't sleep or have sex together. I want to build a room in the basement for you and your son. We just intend to live a normal life and give our children a good life, but nothing will happen between us. At this moment, she was shocked. I didn't choose 10 years because I wanted to give you time to heal the pain between us. We don't exist. I chose 10 years because Tara had graduated from college and we might break up. This has nothing to do with us. These are my daughters. Well, those that I consider mine. And one more thing, the house is always closed to you. You can't take your lover there, and I don't take anyone there when he's ready to go on a date, I said. You're completely wrong, Grant, she sobbed. Everything you said is a lie. I love you so much that it hurts me to think that I can't touch you or kiss you, and even if you don't know it, you love me too. I can have you back in my bed in less than a week, and I'm not a whore. I don't have it, I don't need it, and I don't want any other lover but you. For 10 years I haven't slept with anyone but you. I don't want. I just wanted us to share something, but I was wrong. We're getting married, Grant. We are always together. I don't want to sleep with anyone but you. And your grand 10-year plan seems to ignore the fact that Brandy was only 10 years old when you left us. He's too young to understand why he lost you. This is your daughter, Grant. It's made for you and you'll love it just like the other two. I said, no, why not, she asked. Don't talk nonsense, I replied dryly. My voice became louder and several heads poked their heads through the open door. At that moment, I didn't care. I will not contact your daughter. She reminds me of a lot of what I have and what I have lost. I don't care if he realizes he lost me 10 years or 10 centuries later, because I'm not his father. I don't love you anymore, Bonnie. I thought I hit her and she started crying. This is what you do with us in any game. You burned all my love for you. I guess you never really loved me. If you loved me, you would try to see everything from my point of view. You wouldn't do it at all if you liked it. Even if we decide to try this fake shit, I don't know how long I'll be with you, and I'm not as easy to seduce as you think. The past was easy for you because I loved you. I'm glad to be with you. This is beside the point. Forget about this arranged marriage. I'm filing for divorce on Monday morning. I left the room and saw several surprised faces. Bonnie's father followed me. Grant, stop, he shouted. I didn't stop but slowed down so that he could catch up with me. There is respect here too. What exactly is happening, I asked him. We arrived at the hospital and he sat with me on a bench in the parking lot. He handed me a napkin and turned away while I wiped away my tears. Grant, we need to help you and Bonnie figure this out, he said. Something has happened between you and Bonnie over the past few days. I'm sure it has something to do with the newborn, right? I nodded. I heard something, he said. You are the most tolerant person I know. My 2 grandchildren love you and you love them. Your relationship with Mary is terrible. If a person's genetic code could be mentally rewritten, their genetic code would be the same as yours. Grant, she loved you very much. Why are you yelling at Bonnie's daughter? I started saying that Bonnie's motherly instincts didn't seem to come out the way they should. As you said, I love Maria like my own daughter. Most of the time I forget that she is not mine. I think he forgets sometimes too. Doesn't matter. I love her and Tara as if they were my own. I went into this relationship with my eyes wide open. I made a conscious decision to love them both, but that wasn't enough for Bonnie. She wanted a child so badly that she had sex with a man just to get pregnant. Apparently, this is not an isolated case. I'm not sure I can believe you. This has only happened a few times. I don't know if I can trust him. She planned everything. Go out and have unprotected sex with one or more men you may not even know. Who knows what diseases you may and will bring home with you until you get pregnant. And then imagine, and now we will have a child together. She let me experience everything she ever wanted, everything she missed when she was pregnant with Mary, and I was caught. Without this overworked doctor, I would never have known. She will make me live the rest of my life without even realizing it while she and her lovers laugh at me. A shocked expression appeared on his face. He couldn't believe his daughter had such an ability. I won't follow your plan, I said. It's one thing to play a game without knowing it, but now that I do it, I feel like George Jetson and just want to get out of this crazy cycle. What do you want to do? I asked him. I told him I wanted to file for divorce. His expression darkened even more. He is no longer young, so the blow is too strong and maybe useless for him. Bonnie told me I could take the girls home, I said. If you want to consult with her, I don't mind. No, my son, he said. If they break up, I'm sure you'll both want to spend as much time with them as possible. It will be easier for you too, I told him. There isn't enough room in your house for my daughters, Bonnie and their baby. He simply nodded. But there's room for more in your home, he says. You'll all love it there. That's why after you married Bonnie, you lived in the big house your parents left you. You always knew that you and Bonnie needed a house full of children. That's right, sir, I said. But I don't think Bonnie would be comfortable living with her children under the same roof. You and Mary are welcome to visit us anytime. You don't have to call ahead or anything like that. You can pick up the girls and take them to their mother and stepsister. I hope we can all remain friends. I'm glad you took care of Bonnie. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. She hurt me so much that I can no longer be with her. You don't think this is temporary, do you? I asked him. No, sir, I said. When you talk to him, remind him that it is in his best interest to accept the divorce. I'm looking for a quick and easy way to get a divorce. I will record irreconcilable differences so as not to embarrass both sides. I pay for the support my daughters need and take care of everything they need. However, I will not pay child support to Bonnie or myself. I refuse to pay him because he broke my heart and destroyed our family. Let her love her and take care of her. You can also remind her that no matter how angry she was, she admitted that she went somewhere, got pregnant on purpose, and tried to arrange a child between me and another man. It's a lie. She can be held accountable for this. Maybe even enough to give me custody of my daughter and get her out of jail. I would still get divorced, but the conditions would be better. I try to be polite for my daughter's sake. It's about Mary and Tara, I said. I want them to have a better life. If we have to break up, I want to minimize the impact on her. They have several friends whose parents are not together, so they adapt. I just don't want to embarrass him. The next few days will be difficult for everyone. There are many activities. The next day, Bonnie returned to her parents' house. I took the girls to him but didn't go inside. They couldn't stay long because Bonnie had to go to the hospital to be with Brandy. Doctors did not let Brandy go home for several days. Bonnie kept calling me and asking me to talk to her. He sent his parents to talk to me individually and together. Oddly enough, the person who came closest to understanding this was the stone Brenda. One night, while the girls were sleeping, Bonnie said she couldn't bear to be away from me any longer and convinced Brenda to take her home. She knocked loudly and tried to convince me to let her in. I called her on her cell phone and told her that the girls were sleeping and she was going to do something stupid and wake them up. This will not improve your chances of getting custody. She told me that if I came out and talked to her for 2 minutes, she would leave. She just needed to hear my voice. I agree with. I walked out onto the porch and saw Bonnie and her sister Brenda sitting in lawn chairs on the porch. There are 4 chairs that we sometimes sit on with the children. I think he wanted me to sit on one of the chairs. He probably wanted me to sit next to him. I sat down on the porch railing in front of a chair. "Hi, Brenda," I said, smiling. Then I turned to my wife. I slowly let the smile fade and my face change until it showed my anger and disgust towards her. I wanted her to see all the changes in my facial expression. He then said in his coldest voice, I told him, "You have 2 minutes." "How are the girls?" she asked. "They're fine," I said. I told her what we did that day and she laughed. "I always knew you would make a good father," he said. "I think that's why it's so hard for me to believe that you didn't visit your second daughter in the hospital, that she was unwell. She needs you too. Her mother needs you more than ever." Damn, I said it. Time flies when you listen to nonsense. Your time is up. If you knock on my door again, I'll call the police. She reached out and grabbed me. "Understand that I love you. I ask you to forgive me and give me another chance. Give Brandy a chance." As I was about to close the door, I heard Brenda say, "Don't bother him, Bonnie. Haven't you done enough for him? He was also injured, but it was not his fault. You have done everything. Bonnie attacked her sister. Shut up, Brenda. He is mine and will always be mine. You should be by my side. I already knew that I had made a mistake. Now I need to fix this, and I'm working on it. You may not understand this because you've never loved anyone, but I won't let him divorce you. It will not happen." I heard the desperation in his voice. I would like to pay more attention to this. Perhaps the result will be different. The next morning I got up, made my daughters breakfast, and sent them to school. It's an everyday thing. I still do this every day. Making breakfast was unusual, but bringing it to school was also unusual. They were very excited. "Dad, Brandy is coming home today," Mary said. "Wonderful, Angel," I whispered. I tried to hide the anger in my voice so that my daughter wouldn't take it personally. "Remember the rules, Dad?" Tara said as we approached her school. "Baby, what are the rules?" I asked. "Maria is too old to be your daughter. Now she's just a girl." "I'm your baby, and Brandy is Mama's baby," Tara said. "Okay, it's done." I smiled and let her go. I saw them coming to school and going to work, and I thought everything was fine. I sit down at my desk and begin to focus on the tasks ahead of me that day. I'd been working for about 3 hours and had done nothing when my secretary Joan came in and said there were 2 emergency calls. One call came from the police, the other from the hospital. The police called me. My house was broken into. I quickly ran out, jumped into my Mustang, and drove home. There was no alarm set, which was strange because I was sure I had set it in the morning. 2 police officers were at the scene. They showed me where the window on the side of the house was broken. "Then they came in," the policeman said. I opened the front door and looked around the house. Not stolen. Nothing was actually lost or damaged. I tried to look at the situation with a more critical eye. Then I came to my senses. There were no dishes for the girls' breakfast and the dishwasher was still running. The laundry basket is empty. There's a pile of laundry in the washer and another pile of laundry in the dryer. When I told the police about this, they laughed. "Someone breaks into your house to clean out your apartment," they laugh. As I continued to look around the house, I noticed a few things. Some elements are missing. For example, a framed photo of Bonnie and I from our wedding went missing. Of all the photos taken during our wedding, this was the most special. This is the only film in which Mary does not appear. Our entire wedding album is here. In fact, they put it in my bed. There is a piece of paper on top, several family photographs, photographs of the girls, and some of Bonnie's personal belongings were missing. It's absolutely clear what happened. I changed the locks on the doors so Bonnie couldn't get in. He broke the window and turned off the alarm. I explained this to the officials and they left, realizing that I did not want to apply. I don't blame them. I'm sure they have donuts where needed. I still wonder why Bonnie didn't bring her wedding album with her. This is one of his favorite activities. He leafed through it often, looking at every photograph, every beautiful moment he captured and preserved in our lives. He had to remember all the pictures, but he still loved looking at the book. I took his notes. "Dear Grant, I wish I could fall in love with you at first sight, as you always said, but you are still more important to me than I am to you. When we meet, you can go out and find the one you want. This is one of the reasons why I know that you really love me. In general, who would fall in love with a plump girl with a child when there are so many slender and attractive girls around without any obligations? This must be love. But I don't have the freedom to find the one I love. After the first date, I convinced myself that I love you too. But I can't give my heart to someone just because I love them. I thought about my daughter. It should suit each of us, that's all. After that, my love for you blossomed and grew into obsession. He's still here. I would do anything to keep you in my life. I don't have to worry about my heart because you're still here. No one can take your place. Even in my bed, no one can compare with you. Believe me, I will find out. You know, I've always been a wild girl, but no one has ever made me feel like you do. You were right when you said that my lover and I laughed at you. He didn't laugh at you because he didn't know anything about you. I don't want to blaspheme my love for you by mentioning that I'm married. I made him think I was just a big horny guy who needed sex. I'm the one laughing at you, Grant." I laughed, thinking that it was even possible to think that someone could replace you. Always a lot of fun. There will never be another man who can compare to me. Surprisingly, he didn't remember me at all before. I knew that he would help me get pregnant quickly. I also know that he has no soul and will never think about his children. He eventually left me after my first pregnancy and never tried to contact me about Mary. She was never his daughter. She's yours forever. I love you, Grant. I really think that would be great. I don't like sex. I didn't kiss him. Both times I returned home, I showered at least 5 times. I just can't get myself organized enough. I also felt terrible after both experiences. The only thing that makes me happy after both is sleeping with you, leaving behind painful memories, but without feeling guilty. When I found out I was pregnant, I was very happy because it meant I wouldn't have to see him anymore. I do this not because I like it, but because I want to share something beautiful with the only man I've ever loved, and we can't do it without outside help. If I had known it would put our family in danger, I would never have done it. I do this for the good of our family, not to destroy it. It's like giving up something so wonderful for something so insignificant. I had to face a small problem that you may not know about. My body and everything I am belongs only to you, Grant. From the moment we met, I didn't think that lending someone a small part would make you want the least thing, especially when you get what you really want. Grant, you loved Maria with all your heart. If the only way to catch him was to sleep with someone else, would you want him to do that? If you knew how much you loved him, would you say no? I don't think you like it, but you would do anything for your daughter. You've said this several times. The same goes for Cognac. Same damn man, same damn situation. Believe it or not, Brandy is your daughter. I still have it. You took care of her during her short life. As for inventors, I slept with you. Another thing is the legality of the situation. Grant, I know you're hurt, but you have a legal responsibility to our daughter. I think in your grief, you forgot that she was born that night. After you've helped her give birth and cut the umbilical cord yourself, you might be glad you forgot one thing. When you jump, shake people's hands and tell them your name is Daddy and that you signed their birth certificate. In the eyes of the law and in my eyes, you are his father. I'm not trying to trick you, Grant. I'm trying to show you who you are. I have already told you that you will love her as much as you love your other daughters, and I am ready to devote part of my happiness and my life to proving this to you. Always remember, Grant, that I love you more than anything in this world. If I weren't with you, I would be in a lot of pain. But just like you, I am ready to sacrifice everything for my children. I just hope the old saying, absence makes the heart grow stronger, applies to us too. Bonnie, yours forever, he wrote in the caption. I had no idea what he was talking about. In a few months, we will be untangled, and I will most likely get custody of our 2 daughters. The court will make the decision. At least that's what I thought. My heart missed Bonnie, but my pride wouldn't let me forgive her. Reading his letter may have softened my feelings towards him, but I was still not ready to forgive him. He was ready to find that bastard Danny and beat him up for running away from Mary. Everything was forgotten when the phone rang. This damn hospital again. Bonnie had to call me from the hospital and ask if I had read her damn letter. What? I said into the phone. Grant, you need to come here now, Bonnie's mom, Mary said. Jim suffered a heart attack and Brandy was struggling, he said. I guess Brandy isn't my problem. How wrong I was. When I got to the hospital, 2 nurses grabbed me and tried to drag me in different directions. First, a tall black woman tried to drag me into the pediatrician's office. There was an angry expression on his face. It was so scary that for a moment I thought I was going to have to deal with this bitch. The other nurse was from the cardiology department and was also fat. She just had a friendlier expression. After discussing which need was the most pressing, he finally won. I hate my dead father, the black woman said as she released me. I promise I'll come and pay you back what I owe you, or I'll sign the papers for my doctor to take care of it, I told him. I didn't know what my problem was until I got divorced. She looked at me like she had no idea what I was talking about and walked away. I went to the cardiology department and saw Jim. His heart attack was actually mild. Marie is next to him. He'll be gone for a while, he said. I'm very sorry, but I can't help you. But my husband had to come first. Don't worry, Mary, I said. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. I can easily control my daughters. I've already done it. When Bonnie was pregnant, she still did most of the things she had done before. I just need to make a plan. Plus, if necessary, he could always call Bonnie if something went wrong. Mary looked at me and said, What didn't anyone tell you? Then the doctor came and took Mary and told her about Jim's treatment. I decided to find Bonnie and talk to her. She can tell you what happened, but I'm not going to solve our problems or theirs. As I walked out, a large, angry nurse grabbed me by the arm and took me to the pediatrician's office. We've been calling you all day, he said. I know your wife's disappearance has damaged your family, but you still have a responsibility. I do not know what you're talking. He gave me some papers to sign and then put me in a wheelchair. He then took the child in his arms and pushed me towards the door. "You're lucky we're busy today," he said. "Since you didn't pick her up this morning as planned, we should have called marriage counseling and had you arrested. What idiot would abandon a newborn?" I sat in a wheelchair with an extremely surprised expression on my face. If Brenda hadn't come, I might still be sitting here. "Mom asked me to help you," Brenda said. "Dad will stay here for a few days and then go home. There will be some restrictions in your diet and exercise, but you will be fine. She's more worried about you." Brenda looked at me in the wheelchair and smiled. He called his mother's friend. I couldn't wait to meet Jim. She asked him to take the car to my house and return it immediately. For some reason, I still can't figure it out. He didn't complain at all. I think sitting in a small car with an attractive woman like Brenda is its own reward. "Here, Brenda, why don't you take this?" I said, and pointed to the boy. "Oh no," she said. "I don't have maternal instinct. I could break it. You must be a super dad. You can solve this problem. Very strange things are happening here too." We walked up to my Mustang and I carefully stepped inside. I had to search around the house for the new car seat we bought for the baby. Brenda looked at me as we pulled out of the parking lot and stopped at a red light. "It was the weirdest thing ever," he said. "What?" I asked. "She was calm and quiet," Brenda said. "I visited him every day since he was born. I have never seen this child so calm." "Are you sure you were given what you need?" "Don't start," I say. "I'll save this until your sister gets back from wherever she was. In the meantime, I intend to proceed with my plans for divorce and possibly filing charges of desertion and desertion." "Yes," she said. "I'm serious, Brenda. This is nonsense," I swore. "Yes," she said. My ass," I said. "I will delete this as soon as possible. I'll give you 2 days to get back here." I then contacted Social Security and explained the situation. "You can find him a home, foster parents or something like that." "Yes," Brenda said when we got to my house. "Do you need something?" she asked. "No, I'm spitting. We bought the mix for his birthday but haven't opened it yet. Your sister is an amazing mother. We have everything we need." "Grant, you're a good man," he said. "What Bonnie did was completely wrong. I don't agree with what he did at all, but I know it hurts him to lose you. I think in some ways she loved being a mother, but she began to dislike the child. That's why she left. He needed to get his head in order. It is not good for a child if his mother accuses him of destroying her family. Please don't blame him for this. She's just a girl. You can wait until Bonnie returns to resolve your issues with her." I looked at her and realized that she was right. I nodded. "Grant," Brenda said, grabbing my face. "I remember this was the first time he touched another person. What I said earlier about you being the only person he can stay calm with is what I meant. She wasn't even that calm when Bonnie hugged her. Perhaps she felt that her mother had not been very kind to her. You're the best person I know, Grant. Let my niece feel it. You don't have to accept her as your daughter, but she is related to you. Mary's still yours, isn't it?" I nodded. "Of course," I whispered. "If she is not your daughter, accept Brandy as Mary and Tara's half-sister. I think he's his cousin or something. It may not be yours, but it is part of your family." I nodded helplessly. "I love her so much." "Brenda," I said sadly. "Grant, she still loves you. She hasn't abandoned you at all and won't leave you with anyone. For her, there is only you," she said. She wanted to say something else, but we interrupted her. The girls ran out of the house in delight. They were so busy looking at and touching the baby that they did not even notice the absence of the mother. I feel that there are difficult times ahead. I walked down the once familiar corridor with a very gloomy expression on my face. This expression is not made out of respect for the place where I am. My heart is broken. I felt as if I was divided into 2 parts. I miss Grant so much I want to die. This is one of my options, which is currently being discussed. If this plan doesn't work, here's what I can do. I hope to spend my life within these walls. I think I wanted to become a teacher, but that was over 10 years ago, so I could be wrong. "Bonnie, good to see you again," Reverend Agnes said. "When I was here, she was Agnes's sister and was older then. She must be old already. When I look at her face, I still see the smiling face of the woman then, but now it is much more serious. She also has powers independent of her physical body. He may have failed physically, but his emotional and mental strength has at least doubled." "I'm so glad to see you again, Mother Agnes," I said. "Bonnie, you will be here as a layperson to help us. It is not necessary to comply with formalities. You are no longer a member of the order, but we are still friends. You can call me Inez. We spent a few more minutes discussing what I would be doing in the coming months. My stay here is indefinite. I signed up to help set up the temple computer system. It may take years to bring them out of the dark ages. I hope the journey home doesn't take long. Every minute without family is torture, but as long as we can be together, it's worth it. None of Grant's proposed solutions to my betrayal were acceptable. Once he realized what I was doing, I started thinking of solutions on my own, but none of them worked. I even considered giving Brandy up for adoption. Oddly enough, this was not Grant's idea, and I know why. He and I are convinced that children need parents. Even a father is better than not having one. Therefore, since he did not want to be her father, he did not expect her to leave him. As stupid as Grant is, considering I love all my daughters as much as Brandy, she would lose if I had to choose between her and my husband. I won't let her down. I would make sure she was placed with a good family, maybe even one of our relatives. But I simply couldn't afford to take my daughter's father away from them. There was also my selfish need for Grant. I was alone in my room and took out my iPad. There is no Wi-Fi network in the temple yet, so you have to use it via a 3G network. I tapped the app and the screen filled with a grid of square windows. There are 6 squares in the grid. I press one and it takes up the entire screen. When I saw this scene, I began to cry quietly. I turned up the volume when I saw Grant sitting in a rocking chair by the fireplace. He held Brandy's hand and rocked her. No wonder he was silent about Grant. This is how he treats his children. I saw Mary come in and sit next to him. The daughter follows her father like a puppy. I can't tell them apart. I truly believe that if my 14-year-old daughter had a choice, she would choose to stay with her father after the divorce. Grant handed the baby to his sister so she could get out of the rocking chair. When he stood up, she handed it back to him and followed him to our room. He put her to bed and asked Maria to stay with him until he fell asleep. Then he went to the girls' room and read a story to Tara before going to bed. Marie continued to look at the object in her hand. I cannot believe this. Grant bought Mary a cell phone. He knows that I don't want our kids to become addicted to their phones. She's only 14 years old. I calmed down and smiled. I'm sure he just gave them something to distract them from their regrets over my absence. Tara was always afraid of the dark, but if Mary had been in the room with her, it wouldn't have been a problem. Grant placed the bedside lamp next to the bed. How weak. Looks like Tara has some new toys too. I hope he can calm his anger towards me before the girls take over the house completely. Over the next few months, I ordered and installed computers at the Abbey. I teach classes and teach basic computer skills to nurses. I also teach them how to use the basic types of computer programs. I connected the monastery to the internet and created a network for small businesses. I dedicated myself to work and returned to my room at the end of each day to do things I loved and check on my family. As I expected, Grant took better care of our daughter than I could have imagined. Despite what he said, a bond developed between Grant and our youngest daughter. Tears streamed down my cheeks as he walked across the room, holding my baby and enduring the pain of teething. He gave her ice cream just like he gave Tara. What worries me the most is that he starts talking to the baby every evening when he takes him out for a walk. She told him all about her sisters when they were little and how she grew up to be as smart and beautiful as them. Then he started talking about his relationship with me and who he was dating. I don't know if he actually said these things to the girl, hoping she would understand, or if he was just dealing with his inner demons. He told me how much he loved me and how much I meant to him. I am everything to him. It makes me sad to hear you say that and keep using the past tense. It hurt me even more to hear his true feelings about what he did to me. After that night, I didn't see him for several days and couldn't work because I was depressed and resentful. Then I began to realize how much damage I had done to him. This wasn't the first time I started to question whether what I was doing was really worth what I was going through. I also began to doubt the success of my plan. I don't know if my husband wants me to come back. My sister visited my family regularly and seemed to become close to Grant. I didn't plan this. In fact, things didn't go as planned. I don't think it will take more than 2-3 months. The year is approaching. There are a few things that I consider successful over the last 11 months. One of them happened while my father was recovering from a heart attack. My mom offered to take Brandy, but Grant refused. He told her that his father had enough health problems as it was. This will continue until I return. I am sure that your feelings for our daughter are growing every day. Danny has a habit of recording certain meetings. I took the DVD from him. I don't want anyone to know what I did. Anyway, one night I overheard Grant telling Brenda that he was convinced she had been cheating on him for weeks, maybe years, and was probably hooked again. It breaks my heart that he thinks I would do this to him. Brenda was the only one who knew where she was. I called my sister and asked her to leave the DVDs somewhere so Grant could find them. Brenda asked Grant if she could look through my clothes and find something to wear while she helped him around the house. While he and Grant were searching through the box for his shirt, Grant discovered the DVD. I knew it would be risky to let Grant see another man having sex with me. If you choose the wrong strategy, you will never be able to get everything back. But I also knew that if he didn't like the idea of me sleeping with Danny for fun, I still couldn't get him back. I watched Grant's video through a hidden camera and saw his reaction. I hope this video will help Grant overcome his pain. When I saw his reaction, I didn't understand. A few weeks later, Brenda returned and asked Grant again how he felt about me. For the first time since the beginning, he did not react with anger. He just said he didn't know. I've never been happier since I left home. A few nights later, I almost had a heart attack. As usual, Grant held Brandy in his arms and watched TV with his daughters. Brandy cooed like a baby, spat out the bottle and said flatly. Mary and Tara laughed. Grant seemed angry at first as he looked at the boy. She looked at him carefully, smiled and repeated, "Dad." Grant just shook his head and returned the bottle. A few days later, something else happened. Grant asked Brenda to watch the girls that night. She agreed, but asked him where he was going. He just told her he was leaving. This worries me because I will probably lose him if he starts dating someone. I only had a few months left on staff before Grant and I broke up, so I couldn't risk him dating me. I went to the bar and had a drink. Everything is fine. It wasn't an accident. I chose this place and this time for a reason. I did some research and found out who this Danny was. This is local trash. He's not exactly a criminal. He's nothing more than a lazy, useless bastard who was lucky enough to marry an older rich woman. His wife controls everything in the relationship, but Danny still has time and money to have fun. This is his favorite bar. I'm here to find answers. He had several friends to whom he liked to brag about his exploits. When I sat down at the counter next to his table, he was already serving food. He boasted that he was dating a dancer. I joined the conversation as if I were one of his old friends. "Friend, you grew up in the world," I told him. "Danny, I've been out of town for about a year. I went to Collie's house. You should have seen the girls I brought." Using his name made him think he knew me. "California," he asked. "Perhaps we should meet." I laughed and said, "I'm not sure you can handle it. Last time I was here, you ran off with a big girl." "Oh, please," he said. "These older married women are a real problem. Seducing a young girl is great, but chasing an older, taller married woman makes you realize that you are special." I nodded as if I almost believed him, but I needed to convince him. I leaned over and told him to meet me in the parking lot so we could talk. Of course, his friends wanted to come, but I told them that if he vouched for them after meeting the girls, maybe we could bring them next time. They even paid for my beer. Danny and I walked out into the parking lot with big smiles on our faces. He smiled at his addiction and looked forward to what he thought would happen to him. I also laughed at what was about to happen to him. Let me set the stage for you. Danny was a big guy, even bigger than me, but his wife practically tamed him. He looked like one of those old, toothless tigers at the zoo. He was a threat to those smaller and more domesticated than him. But like tigers in zoos, many of them refuse to leave their cages when released into the wild. We pulled into the parking lot and I sat on the hood of Danny's M3. "Tell me what happened to that fat girl last year," I said. Danny loved telling his little stories to his friends, so he immediately got to work. "I really like this dog," he began. "I feel like I know her from somewhere, like we went to school together or something. It's like she already knows me and still wants most of Danny for herself." He laughed at his own joke, but then realized that I wasn't laughing. In fact, she asked me to have sex. We must have made love for at least several hours straight. In fact, he came back and seemed to like what he got. "Are you still kidding her?" I asked. "Hell no," he spat. I try to be careful, especially with married people. This bitch wants to leave her man for me. When I hit him, he took a breath and tried to say something. My first blow knocked him unconscious and he staggered backwards. "What the heck?" He frowned when I hit him again. This time my hand hit a little harder and blood poured out of his face. "You broke my nose!" Scream. "If you don't tell me the truth, I will destroy the rest of your things," I told him. "What do you want to know?" he asked, vomiting blood. I smiled as he walked away from me. He has no courage at all. At that moment, my hatred for Danny turned to pity. I also abandoned my original plan to tell his wife what I had done. If this information were made public, it would only harm my daughters, especially Mary. We would all be better off if none of this happened. I said the facts tell me everything. Don't hide anything. You never know what might make me want to hit you again. I'm not your friend, so don't try to look good. Tell me the truth. Good. The truth is that when she approached me, I was shocked. Half the women here don't listen to me talk anymore. When this woman approached me, I didn't care that she was a little overweight. She's beautiful and has big breasts. It's free sex. Why reject the gift of fate? But the sex was terrible. Hell, he didn't even take his clothes off. She acted like she didn't want me to touch her at all and ended up becoming aggressive towards me. He looked at me and waited for my reaction. I was sure I would never see her again, he continued. But after a few weeks, she came back to me. I thought maybe the last time was the wrong time or she wasn't in the mood. But the second time was even worse. She didn't even move. The expression on his face seemed to hate me. I swear I know her from somewhere. I just don't remember it. The look on his face was so full of hatred that I simply told him that this would be the last time we would see each other. I think she hates all men, especially me. He wiped the blood from his broken nose and looked at me. I felt very embarrassed or wanted to cry. Both times I had tears in my eyes as soon as we finished. If I didn't know better, I would have thought she slept with me as punishment. I'm convinced she's married because she won't stop talking about him. It's too weird. Most married women I've slept with never talk about their husbands. He shook his head. Life is strange and people are complicated. He looked at me as if I had just said something very important. Get out of my sight, Danny, I said. I have a lot to think about. I parked a few blocks away in case something went wrong. Danny was a lot shyer than I thought. He didn't even try to hit me. He offered no resistance. He just started expressing everything that was bothering him. I'm really sorry about all of this. I actually felt very bad. Danny is an idiot. This goes without saying, but this is not a reason to get angry and resort to violence. What if they catch me? What will my daughters do if I go to jail? Who else likes this but me? Her Aunt Brenda was not the motherly type at all. Her grandparents loved her, but they were too old to care for her. Just me. Of course, Bonnie loved her too, but where was she? Talking to Danny made me see things in a different light. Very hard. In life, everything is not so simple in black and white. There are many types of gray. My Mustang's engine made me rethink my situation even more. There are many problems here. Some of them are stupid. Bonnie cheated on me? Yes, nonsense, I did it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that everything he said was true. She has changed. Do your reasons make sense? Never. They didn't. We are fine. We could have had the baby ourselves, but she decided to ruin everything. On the other hand, none of us are getting any younger, especially not her. If we wait for something, it may never happen. As much as I hate to admit it, the way he did it was probably completely wrong, but he did it for a reason. I would prefer that we discuss this first and then discuss artificial insemination or medical procedures. The remaining questions are even more confusing. Do I think Bonnie loves me? I'm still pretty sure. Well, even that bastard Danny seems to be sure that she loves me. Do I still love Bonnie? How I wanted to jump up and say, no, I hate that liar. I cannot. It's been almost a year since he left. Brandy started talking and tried to walk. I haven't had a date yet and I haven't planned one. But every day and every night I wonder where he is. I'm convinced that he found someone else and left me and my daughters. But sometimes I think it would be nice to find a way to solve the problem. Most of the time I tell myself that I hope this never happens. But to be honest, I'm not sure that's true. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have Brandy. And there's no point in pretending that I don't like this girl. I like it at least as much as the other two. To them, I'm just as much a father, if not more so, than that bastard Danny. This was not the man he looked into his eyes, and called his father. This is who I am, and if I get my way, it will always be like this. During my time at the monastery, I learned many things that I never thought I could learn. I had been here less than a week when I was asked to buy beer, pills, etc. for the new guys. It is clear that modernity is over. While I'm here, women who need these things don't even try to serve the Lord. It also appears that church rules on issues such as abstinence and chastity were suspended. That night I cried myself to sleep again. I couldn't even look at my family. It became increasingly clear to me that Grant might never get over his hatred for what I had done. It was enough for me to accept my daughter, at least superficially. Maybe he had no complaints about her, but even for me, who had only seen her on video, it was obvious that he loved her. The next morning I woke up to the sound of my cell phone. It rang 4 times and then fell silent before the answering machine heard it. Then it rang 4 more times. Someone really wanted to talk to me. I picked up the phone and answered sleepily. "Hello, I'm gossiping." "Bonnie, go home," my sister Brenda said. "So?" I asked. "Grant left last night," he said. "It can't be done," I said. "If you're currently dating someone, that's another reason to stay away. Perhaps he forgot about me and tried to move on." I don't shout. "Before you jump to stupid conclusions, can I tell you what I think happened? You made a stupid decision that almost ruined your life. Are you ready to listen this time?" I didn't really like the way she talked to me, but Brenda has never been a social person. Maybe that's why she became a model. He has no human emotions. He's just a mannequin hanging clothes. "Come on," I said. "Grant wanted to go out last night for the first time since you left. We tried several times to get him to go somewhere, but he never wanted to go." "I was a little jealous at first," she said. "I always thought that if they never got back together, maybe I'd give Grant a chance. He is a good guy. I couldn't believe my sister said that. I was a little angry, but tried not to show it." "Either way, he left," she continued, "and their date only lasted about 45 minutes. "Well, maybe they're just not suitable for first dates," I said. "But if you start dating, sooner or later you will find someone. Few women would be foolish enough to let him go." "Can I tell you a story or something?" Brenda asked. "Sorry," I said. "When he got home, I noticed his hands looked like they had been in a fight," he said. My rapid breathing made her smile. "You still love him," he said, smiling. "Of course," I answered dryly. "From start to finish, I never once asked if I liked it. I'll love Grant until it's all over and maybe even after continue." I asked him a few questions and he told me that he had fallen. He's a terrible liar, isn't he? If someone falls, I catch myself with my fist, but they don't want to say it, so I don't push. This morning, my friend told me that his old friend Danny was brutally beaten. His lip was swollen like a lump and his nose was broken. I came home early in the morning and asked the girls to help me prepare breakfast. I have been her only female role model since her mother abandoned her. "What are my options, Brenda?" I said. I started crying. Then we sat down at the table. Mary said her usual prayer and Grant added his name at the end. A mocking expression appeared on Maria's face. "Tara was just thinking about this." After breakfast, I asked Grant why he did it, and he said he'd been thinking about you lately. So I asked him if that's why he started dating. He just smiled and said he didn't think he'd find anyone to replace you. This is for him. It's just not fun. I asked him if he still loves you. For the first time since you left, I wasn't angry. He just said that he loves you with all his heart and that his biggest regret in this whole situation is that he didn't tell you that before you left. But he wants you to be happy wherever you are and whoever you are with. But I insisted that I would not leave or be with anyone but him. "Should I go home and tell him?" she asked. I didn't answer. I grabbed my purse and keys, grabbed my phone and ran to the car. I didn't waste time getting ready and changing clothes. I ran to the car in my long flannel pajamas. Surprisingly, none of the men I saw at the gas station noticed anything was wrong or said a word. Women and girls always pointed at me and laughed. My phone rang again. I looked at the screen and saw that it was Brenda again. I replied, "Well, have you thought about the question I asked you?" He asked pointedly. "I think I'm serious about this," I laughed. "Great," he said. "You may go crazy sometimes, but you are still a good sister, and I think you both need each other. You may be a soulless doll with a completely flat ass, but you are the best sister in the world," I told her. Then I hung up and concentrated on driving. We returned home very late that day. After all the drama this morning on the way to school and daycare, I decided we needed to treat ourselves a little. This drama has nothing to do with girls. When I mentioned his mother, it was my fault. So we stopped at McDonald's for dinner. I think we should sit in front of the TV, eat something and get to know each other better. The idea seemed doomed, because when Mary got into the car and hugged me, it all started again. "Why mention this? Dad, she left us. We don't need this," he said. "Mary, my love, there is a difference between the words love and need," I say. "I think I understand why you are confused. You are experiencing the same thing as me." At first, I was very offended by his behavior. I don't know why he did it, but he did it. Knowing this, I probably didn't handle it very well. "I think your mother felt cornered and had nowhere to go. Then she left, lost in thought. Maria really didn't know everything. She and the other girls were too young to do this. The only thing he knew was that his mother was missing." "No, Dad," Mary answered dryly. "She ran away. All these stories are about her taking responsibility for her actions, but when it's her turn, she runs away. She left you, me, Tara, and even Brandy. You're right, said Tara, who had just gotten into the car. We continued talking about it until we went to pick Brandy up from preschool. Then we talked until we got to McDonald's. Then, as always, other problems arose. For example, Tara tries to imitate her sister. Since Mary spent a lot of time on her phone, Tara decided that when she turned 10, she would need a phone too. This was the main topic of conversation when we entered the house. Tara, you are only 10 years old, Mary said. Dad won't buy you an iPhone. You are young. No, Tara said, discover the trends. When Dad was little, he didn't have a cell phone until he got a job when he was 20. You got a phone when you were 14. I need a cell phone now. I'm 10 years old. Brandy got a cell phone when she started school at age 5. This way, you can call your dad if your applesauce gets too cold or someone says something bad to you. Unlike the rest of us, Tara was so engrossed in their argument that she didn't even notice it. Mary is carrying bags full of groceries. She immediately put down what she was holding and opened her mouth in surprise. Tara turned to see why her sister dropped the food. I held little Brandy's hand as he took a few slow, hesitant steps. Now that you understand the general principles of walking, you will want to walk constantly unless you are tired or scared. When Brandy saw Bonnie leave the room, she immediately turned to me. Mary's mouth fell open and her face showed shock and anger. Hi, Mom. Don't I deserve an iPhone? Tara asked without blinking. What did your father say? Bonnie asked as she walked past her. He went straight to Brandy. Can I hug her? He asked, holding out his hand. Brandy doesn't want that. When Bonnie's hands reached out to her, she screamed at her father and began to cry. Bonnie took a step away from Brandy, who calmed down as I followed her. Why are you here? Did you forget something? Asked Maria. I looked at Bonnie's face as she responded. I miss you girls and your dad, she said slowly and softly. You should leave for good, Mary said as she left. So can I have an iPhone? Asked Tara. I took the food and bag to the girls' room. During dinner, Mary found a movie to watch, and I promised her we'd talk later. As usual, I returned to the living room with Brandy in my arms. She started to fall asleep, and then I went into the living room with her and talked to her until she fell asleep. Wow. You feel right at home, I told Bonnie. His eyes sparkled and he smiled at me. I put it on this morning while talking to my sister on the phone. I immediately jumped up and came here. I didn't even bother to change or get ready. When he said maybe we could talk, that was enough, Bonnie said. Shall we call someone? I asked. This brought another smile. He leaned back on the couch and watched as he led Brandy through the living room. You're not very literate, he said. I should call anyone. It's more important than talking to you. Well, I probably could have called the abbess of the monastery where I work, but I'm sure she'll understand. Over the past 11 months, 2 weeks and 3 days, she has told me more than once that I need to come home and face my problems instead of running away from them. Grant, there is no other man in my life but you. This has never happened and will never happen. She continued to look at me. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked. Because I miss you so much, idiot, he said. Since I've watched you do this every night for the last 11 months, you are the best father anyone can have. What do you mean? I asked. You can imagine how much I worry about Danny's children. I'm angry again. Grant, this is not Danny's baby, he said. Is he your son? Now he's even afraid of me. It took him some time to get used to me. She is attached to you. You are his father. You are his father. I was there the first time he said it. No, that's not true, I said. Yes, I am, he said. He walked over to the shelf and picked up the middle shelf. Camera, he said. I have several at home. I'm not quite with the one I love, but I'm not close. So you are spying on us, I said. Grant, call it what you want, but I can't live without you. Even if I can't be with you, I have to see you. What if there is an accident or emergency and you need me? What if a woman tries to come into your life? I need to know what happened to you and the girls, he said. You did better than I could have imagined without me. Of course, the girls hugged you, especially Mary. My God. Grant, you bought him a cell phone when he was 14 for $300. Is it any wonder Tara thinks she can have it now? She stood up and slowly walked towards me. If you want, you can kick me out of the house, but know that I'm always right. I hate what it takes to prove it to you. It took us a whole year to show you what you always knew. She shook her head. It's all my fault, Grant. I made a mistake. I just had an idea and never thought about what you would think. I thought how cool that would be. I always imagined you holding me while our baby grew in my belly. It became an obsession. After a while, I couldn't think of anything else. It no longer mattered how I got there. In my heart of hearts, I always believed that it wasn't Danny who got me pregnant. I think after a while I won't need to pretend anymore. I truly believe in my heart that this is your son. She stood up and walked next to me, Brandy snoring on my shoulder. What I did to you was terrible, he said. I cheated on you, I cheated on you, I cheated on you. I swear I'll never do this again. I just want to be with my family again. I know I must continue to earn your trust and love, but I can only try if you give me a chance. So now we know why you're here, I said. Why do you think I'm here, she asked. I guess I thought you were here to pick up your kids, I said. While you were gone, we talked about divorce and I tried to get custody of our 2 children. I don't want anything to do with you or Brandy. I remember, he said. If I offered to give her up for adoption, would you accept me? I guess I decided then that the boy should be with his mother, I said. So you and she will have to leave. I think you and her should go away, and I'll take care of my daughters. Or you get custody, and I get visitation rights and visit my daughters as often as the law allows. What if I offered to take it off now, she asked. I will kick you out of the house and see you in court, I told him. You left her. My God, of course, he said. Just say. I never wanted to take this away from you. Not that I could do it. That's not why I came back. So why did you come back, asked. Grant, damn it, I'm back for you. I'm back because I support you every night. I come back because I love the way you smile at me every time I walk into the room with your big ass. I came back because I wanted to grow old with you. You already know that I want to have children with you. I came back because I can't live without you. And no matter what it takes for you to forgive me, I will. That's why I came back. But you have to convince the girls, I told him. We are the package. According to her, Maria had a hard time. I can't believe my baby looks at me like that. But you know he loves you from the first moment he sees you. I think what upsets him the most is the moment you left us. Do you think it will be easier for you to convince Tara, asked. Oh yes, he said. Tara will forgive me if you let me spend the day with her at Best Buy. According to her, it will be more difficult with the other 2. Mary was already pissed because I came back and Brandy didn't recognize me. He's a year old and starting to walk and talk, but he's never met me before. She will always choose you over me. I shrugged. And of course the most important thing, he says. I looked at her curiously. You are a stupid man, he said. I wouldn't do any of this if I knew there was a risk of losing you. I love you so much that I really want to undress you now. I'm saying this may not happen for a long time. I need to think about the children. I can't let someone else's wife into my life. What example can I give? But it will happen eventually, right? She asked. I don't know, I said. I've been on a few dates. Many qualified women are interested in me. Are you talking about my sister or Danny? She asked. You know, you don't have to hit him. I left you the DVD so you can see what happened. You know I don't like it, and let me tell you the truth. I'm only doing this to get pregnant. I don't care if he tells all his friends that I'm a whore as long as you know the truth. I love you, Grant, says more than you can imagine. I love you too, Bonnie, I said. I miss you. So can you forgive me, she asked. Please, I promise I will fix this and it won't happen again. I forgave you a long time ago, I said, but I wasn't sure I could survive the betrayal. We can try. I'm ready, but we'll have to take it one day at a time. I can't promise that we'll be together forever or that things will get better soon, but I'll do the best I can. This is exactly what we do. We crawl before we run. We start with Bonnie and Brenda living together. We went on a few dates, and then she came to our house. His first meeting with girls after a year's absence was terrible. They looked at me to confirm everything she said. When Bonnie said she was shopping with the girls, they would look at me or just ask if I was okay around her. When Mary sees that Bonnie is really trying, she softens faster than we thought. The problem is Tara. She didn't trust Bonnie at all. He often peppers his answers and comments with phrases like, how long will it take him to escape again? Or the ever-popular, I don't need to listen to you, or you're not my dad. Fortunately, children adapt very easily. Brandy overcame her fear of Bonnie and often climbed into her lap, whether I was busy or not. We gradually revived her relationship with the girls. It will be years, not months, before we get to see that. Go back and say that Bonnie's relationship with the girls was the same as before she left. Our relationship developed just as slowly. I have to admit, there were times when I thought we were going nowhere. I remember a few times when I was really angry with her, I would just scream and ask why this was so important to her. Many families are experiencing and facing divorce. She just calmly looked at me and said that she saw what the year was like without me. At least I had girls who gave me all the love and attention I needed. When we said goodbye, she only had time to think about what she had done and what it had cost her. Anything beyond this will be waiting for you again. Small steps have been taken along this path. Something strange happened in our relationship. Bonnie didn't have much money. He saved most of the money he earned at the monastery, but other than food and board, he was paid little. Then he quickly ran out of money and I had to give him some. I could get a job, we discussed it, but I decided that I would prefer that she take care of the house. I may be a good father, but I'm a terrible housewife. This also caused some confusion and pain. When Bonnie takes over the family business, she makes two very wrong assumptions. We are not ready to accept this. She thought that running the house meant she would live here, but that's not the case. She suggested that I pick Brandy up from daycare and let her watch her during the day. And that's not what is meant. But there are good times and bad. The first touch of his hand was terrifying again. Our first hug, the first time he pressed his body against mine. We kissed again on my birthday. The girls threw me a party at the local water park. On a hot summer day, we spent the whole day in swimsuits playing in the cold water. Then we had dinner at my favorite restaurant. When we returned home, the girls were exhausted. I had to pull Tara out of the car. Soon Brandy started snoring too. Bonnie and I sat on the couch while my 15-year-old daughter sat between us, exhausted, texting one of her friends. While Bonnie was drinking something, Mary whispered something in my ear. "Be careful, Dad. She looks at you strangely. I think you'll try something," he said. Bonnie came back and sat next to me, and Mary sat on the other side. Mary also fell asleep, and I took her to the room. When I returned, Bonnie was still lying on the couch. Then I realized what I was doing after drinking. She took off her bra. "I have another birthday present for you," he said. She hugged me tightly. When she kisses me, it's like I'm broken and put back together again. Our lips attacked each other with excitement. We opened our mouths and his tongue was still very soft. She leaned back and pulled me towards her. "I missed you so much," she hissed. When we heard this, she was already putting on her shirt. Marie's angry voice came from behind my shoulder. "Then you probably shouldn't leave it," he said dryly. "I'm so sorry I did that, honey," Bonnie said. "I'll never do this again." We didn't do anything else that night, not even kissed goodnight. Maria stayed with us and refused to sleep. Bonnie thought it was cute. She smiled. She protected you. Over the next few weeks, Mary didn't leave any of us alone. After a while, she reluctantly allowed him to hug her and then kiss her. Then when he saw that we were walking hand in hand all the time, he talked to Bonnie, and after that everything was fine. When I asked Bonnie about this, she shook her head. "We talked," he said. "What else?" I asked. "She said she'd give me another chance, but only once," Bonnie said. "She told me that I was getting old and I needed to think about my future." "Does this mean he thinks you should come back to me?" I asked. "No," Bonnie said. "She told me that if she ever hurt you again, she wouldn't do it again." A few nights later, Bonnie was in our bed. I had to be very careful not to wake the girls, but it was difficult. I don't remember how it started. All I remember is her turning around, and the next thing we knew, we were kissing like we were never going to stop. Then we both realized that we were together again. "I love you, Grant." "I always have been, and always will be," he said. "I will never leave you again." Then she grabbed the blanket, snuggled up to me, and fell asleep. The next morning, the girls were surprised that Bonnie came so early. "She came so early, Tara," Mary said. "She spent the night." "She didn't come home?" asked Tara. "No, Tara," Mary said irritably. "She's at home now." The girls continued to do their thing. Years passed and we became a family again. Now there are only 3 of us. Mary works as a lawyer in Chicago. Tara is married and lives with her husband in Atlanta. Brandy is studying computer engineering at the University of Michigan. While the girls were doing their thing, it was just Bonnie, me, and my new Mustang. We never had children, but we raised 3 beautiful daughters, and although they were mine, I could not love them more. I think the circumstances of Brandy's birth almost destroyed my family, but we learned our lesson and moved on. Bonnie never lied to me again. The risk of us not succeeding was too great, so he learned something. I've learned that sometimes someone can do the wrong thing for the right reasons or the right thing for the wrong reasons. Everything is fine. I can't express it, but in the end, she made a mistake and I forgive her. This is my life and my decision. I let go of all my anger and pride and realized that I love him and always will. I also love cognac and always will. I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. It would be worse if I cut her out of my life. Now I'm probably a grumpy, lonely old man. I wouldn't have the love of my life by my side or the joy of watching my youngest daughter grow into a special woman. I'd be more like Danny. His wife eventually died and he left everything he had to charity. He didn't receive a penny. He didn't even have a home. A week after the funeral, he became homeless. He lived in various homeless shelters for 5 years. Now he spends his days wandering the streets and telling anyone who will listen stories about all the women he slept with. Last Thanksgiving, while Bonnie was cooking, the girls and I went out for some last-minute shopping. Tara stayed home to help her mom, and Brandy and Mary stayed with me. When we left the store, Danny was sitting outside holding a sign that said, "We work for food." I took $1 out of my pocket and gave it to him. Mary, as always, looked at me and gave it to him too. I could tell she didn't want to get too close to him. He didn't seem to recognize me and never met my daughters. "Thank you, sir," he said. He looked at Mary as she left. "Dad, why did you give money to a homeless person?" Brandy asked. "He simply spent the money on illegal drugs or alcohol." "You never know, honey," I said. "This man could be someone's father." "It's not mine," Mary answered dryly. "Me too." "Thank God," Brandy said. When we got back into the car and started driving, each of them grabbed my hand. Subscribe to our channel so that the second drop does not deceive you, and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you are under 18 years of age, please do not listen to the following episodes.